Hey, we're recording.
How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the Data Lab here on the Sports Affiliation. While you're here, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel because you do not want to miss any of the great podcasts here at the Sports Affiliation. Joining me, as he always does, on the Data Lab. Hey, he built the Data Lab along with my help. It is the fantasy professor. It's John Bush. And John, one of the great questions in fantasy football will be answered today.
Okay.
Why
Oh,
do why do players fail? I love having that as a topic because you have done a lot of good work to get us to the point where might at least be able to have that discussion about why players fail from a very scientific backed basis.
yeah. So there is a process known as decision hygiene. It was developed from the book. If you want to, everybody in fantasy should read Noise by Daniel Kahneman. He won the Nobel Prize, behavioral economics, and some other people I'm not familiar with. It's compared to washing your hands, a good practice that doesn't show immediate results but prevents errors, right? The errors of getting a virus. And, when you pick your nose, Dennis, that's one of the ways that you actually get a cold is people touch and pick their nose. And that's washing your hands helps you that way. You don't realize it, but if you have a practice, and the best doctors should wash their hands between patients. And so that was the whole concept of that word decision hygiene. Make your decisions cleaner is the concept. Quality of decisions. We're trying to reduce the noise, the bias, and the inconsistency in the thinking process. And we're hoping it just makes it a little clearer, Dennis. And if I get time, I'll actually take this concept and maybe make a video for our site here. And it has 7 different things, principles. I'm not going to go into all of them because you can do that. But anyway, folks, here it is. I've been through a series of prospecting prompts. I've landed on the concept of, and I'm not sure anybody's done that, concept I call decision hygiene scorecard for fantasy football, Dennis. So that may be something that I developed, and let me share that. And it's an article. In fact, I've got 4 of them on our site. So I took what is in one field, Nobel Prize winning concepts, merged it with fantasy, then added something, my spin, and then I let the grok tell me a little bit. And now we're going to truth it by having our pattern guy, our practitioner, our wizard of weather, Dennis here. You can see his icon there. See, he's ready to go here. Wizard of Weather. You like that moniker, don't you, Dennis? Wizard of Weather here. He loves it. And the article is, and we'll be working on this the next few data labs, decision hygiene scorecard. And today we'll talk about tight ends, but I also did quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers using FFPC best ball ADPs. Okay, so that's part of my blending as well. But I developed the scorecard, I developed the merging that with fantasy and FFPC. And I've got lots of these concepts that I'm going to bring from science and merge here over the next few years. So you need to stay with me. If you're saying, I've never heard of any of this kind of stuff or applications, well, I don't know what you're paying for, folks. we're giving it for free. Okay, all I got to say, this article is up. You can chew on this as you need. And part of your planning and pattern analysis needs to be done here, not planning where the liquor store is before your draft. Okay, that is not the kind of planning we're talking about here, or what kind of chicken wings you like here stuffing your
Ooh.
face at your draft. Okay, so tight ends and quarterbacks. The reason I wanted us to start them, Dennis, and he will agree, lower volume positions with they're noisier, especially tight ends. I think are the noisiest because we've seen this elite tight end concept, and then it just drops, and then it becomes streaming. There's no middle ground that I've seen in the few years. Dennis is better than zero that we chewed on in the Science of Fantasy podcast. We acknowledge this, and Dennis has a way to be adaptive on tight ends. So this is part of that fusion that I'm bringing forth here. And we play in premium scoring leagues, 1.5 PPR points. So that makes it even more of a drop off here. And if I don't get, just cut away, if I don't get an elite, I'm streaming. I'm not trying to pick a sleeper elite. Okay, I'm going to stream, and that's what I think everybody should do. And so this scorecard has a bunch of things that you can look at. ADP, currently player, the prior base rate. In other words, over the years, historically, I asked the AI to tell me what are kind of the points that have been scored. You can look at that. The map concept that I threw in here, looking at a floor to ceiling from 0 to 10, 10's the best floor and the best ceiling. And then, for instance, Brock Bowers is a floor and ceiling of 9, Dennis. That's as good as you'll get. McBride is 9 and ceiling is 8. So that means that he's stronger than what he could be. Just he's more solid than I think Bowers is. At least that's what Brock told us here. But the failure rate right here, Dennis, that's what we're going to talk about today. It's called pre-mortems. In other words, before you bury somebody, how are they going to die, right? Doctors probably do a
Yes.
lot of that, right? They know, if they have to deal with somebody who's a substance addicted person, if they're smart enough to go to the doctor says, yeah, you're going to die of, if you're an alcoholic, your liver could go, we could be planting you in the ground because of a bad liver, that kind of thing. Or if you're a smoker, it could be lung cancer. So, doctors and whatnot kind of know what's going to bury you. And we're trying to figure that same concept. And so I ask it to give us, why are these going to be failures this year? Not that I believe it, not that I've graded it on an opportunity index metric, right? Like 100% fail rate or zero. It's just, what could be it? What does the AI look in the whole context and say what's going to be a problem? So I'm going to let Dennis chew on some of these elite ones. I consider Bowers and McBride to be the elite guys here, and look at the AI and FFPC, Dennis, 18 and 22. So, and a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of times they're even going in the first round, Dennis,
Yes.
10 and 12. So this is maybe a little bit not up to speed a little bit. So I know that. But anyway, Bowers will be a failure because his quarterback we have a downgrade, or their new weapons, i.e., a new running back or something changes what was going on last year. So we need to weigh the option. How good is the quarterback? Does Jeremiah Love steal from Bowers? And then McBride, does he just have a natural regression or injury? So that's interesting here. And notice they got high safe floor for him. And of course, Bowers, if everything goes right, he's the anchor. So I'm going to stop and let you chew on that. I went through a lot of material quick, folks. You need to think about this, but we're trying to hit the high points, and we've got some more that Dennis maybe can ask about. But those two, I wanted to hear your comments about why they might fail this year, if they will fail. But what do you think is? Do you believe this or not?
So, first of all, the reason this is important is in recent years, we have constantly seen that from tight end 1 to tight end 5, the gap is larger than between 5 and 22. So we want to have an elite tight end. We want to hit on the elite tight end, but we have to take a swing so early in the draft that if we're right, we get paid off because the gap between our tight end and our opponent's tight end is going to be potentially pretty great 10 out of the 12 weeks. It's not great when you're playing the second best tight end necessarily. But as the professor said, if he misses on the first 2 or 3 tight ends, the elite guys that look like they should be elite. Last year, we were so confident that Trey McBride and Brock Bowers were going to be number 1 and 2, but we really liked Trey McBride's safety. And we were right. On the teams that we did take the chance of drafting, Trey McBride, we got paid off. Brock Bowers had some injury issues. So if you look at every single player in fantasy football and you look at why they can fail, you first of all, you have to do it with your blinders off. Because if you cannot point out 3 reasons why any player might fail, and yes, injury is one of those possibilities for each and every player. If the player has an injury history, then maybe that is enough to be concerned. But I can look at Brock Bowers, for instance, and I can find some different ways to look at failure. So Brock Bowers has been on an awful team, and he's performed quite well when he's been healthy. Is the team going to be as awful as it was in the past, both offensively and defensively? And I say defensively because that's important as well. If Las Vegas's defense gets considerably better, and they weren't awful last couple of years, but they weren't top 5. But if that defense does get much better, then the offense doesn't throw the football as much with an uncertain quarterback situation, because they're either going Kirk Cousins, who's got enough flaws in his profile, or you're going the rookie Fernando Mendoza. And I think Mendoza is going to win the starting job by no later than week 4. He's that good as a college guy coming out. Notice I said he isn't going to be a great quarterback necessarily by week 4, but he might be better option as far as developing him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he starts week 1.
So, Dennis, let me just throw something in. Quarterback change. There's not a discussion here, but given what you think, we might add that to the issue, because you and I, in fact, you brought this to my attention that Kyle Pitts at Atlanta was differentially successful or not, depending on Cousins versus Penix.
Yes.
So when you said that, that concept just hit me. How do we know what Bowers and Mendoza might be versus, starting out the first 4 weeks? I could see some issue there.
A lot of issues there, because Will Mendoza be necessarily a check down master
Exactly.
with short passes? Will he be risking that pass, generally tight end? You're
Hmm.
talking middle of the field for their prime production. Sometimes a quarterback prefers to just dump it off to the running back, and they got a great one in Giante.
Yes.
Ashton Giante is a very, very good NFL running back already as a rookie. He was, and he's going to be better in year two.
I
But
think
here's the
that
thing with,
2 year thing. Yeah.
yeah, and here's the thing with Vegas. They invested on their offensive line. So while last year he had kind of like an average to below average offensive line most of the year, and then they had injuries, and then it got worse as the year went on. This year, if they stay healthy, they might have one of the top 10 offensive lines in the league. Because when you add one or two pieces to an offensive line that makes up 5 players, you sometimes get that force multiplier type guy that he's so good he makes the guys alongside him even better. And their interior offensive line with a really good center, that might be where they can attack teams with the running game. So maybe the running game is more successful and they don't have to pass as much because of that. Maybe the defense is better, so they don't have to pass as much because of that. That's not saying Brock Bowers is not going to still get heavily targeted when they do throw the ball, because they didn't add much at the wide receiver position. They added Jalen Naylor as a free agent. I like him a lot as a late round draft pick, by the way. We're not talking wide receiver yet, but we'll get to that. But I like him. They added a rookie that I'm curious about in Malik Benson. They have 2 very interesting rookies, Jack Bash and Deontay Thornton from last year, that are going to be second year guys this year. We love that second year wide receiver. So there are reasons that Brock Bowers' target share could drop. There's reasons to think that Vegas won't need to throw as much. Now, that doesn't mean that Brock Bowers won't still be one of the top 2 tight ends or top 3 tight ends in the league, because I think that's very possible. But his production might not be as great every week as we saw his rookie season when he was healthy, and last year when he was healthy. For instance, Brock Bowers as a rookie, MVP score 94.
That's good as a rookie.
That's insane. Like 94 is a starting wide receiver, folks.
Right.
That's a top 2 tight end every year that I've been keeping this stat. He dropped to a 67 last year. That's still pretty strong for a tight end. That's usually top 3. But he did have a decline. He showed a little chink in the armor. Was it all because of injuries? Was it because the quarterback play was so awful? I actually think the quarterback play is better this year with Vegas than Geno Smith was last year. So quarterback downgrade, I don't really agree with that analysis. New weapons, yes, but a better defense and a better running game are also 2 other things that I look at. So while I expect Brock Bowers to be a lock for a top 5 at tight end, is he a lock to be 1 or 2? There might be some guys that'll challenge him for that. And when you have to overpay for a tight end, and right now, folks, he's going number 8. He's going 8.3.
I don't remember. Kelsey at his peak was probably close. I thought a 10, but
Kelsey
an
at his
8?
peak was going about 11 to 15-ish
Yeah.
in FPPC. Now he's like
I
That
think I remember
is,
one year he might have been a 10.
he might have been a 10 or 11
I
one
don't
year.
remember an 8. I'm trying to think a young Kelsey and a young Bowers. I, I think Kelsey. If I'm picking those two, I'm picking Kelsey.
Well, Kelsey with Mahomes,
Yes,
with a lousy defense that needed to throw the ball 45 times with,
that was gravy.
yeah,
You
that
were
was
getting
prime time,
you
baby.
were making you were his value was baked in at 10, 11, 12.
Yes, yes. And he had a 144
There you
MVP
go.
score that
That's a
year.
wide receiver level.
Oh, that's an elite wide receiver. Actually, I was wrong. I was wrong on that.
Oh,
160
that's crazy, Dennis.
MVP in 2020. 129 in 2022 was insane. That's elite wide receiver number at 129. 160 is WR1 as a
Yes.
tight end.
Yeah.
And even more substantial that year, the next guy was a 68.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a difference in MVP
I just
almost
don't
double,
see
over double.
Bowers being more valuable than, if I'm trading between the two, I just don't. I'm not sure that value is baked in at 8. That just sounds, where if I'm picking 8 and I'm trying to think of who else might be there at 8.
Well,
Uh,
the guys that are going in that neighborhood right
yeah,
now,
yeah.
okay,
Let's talk about that.
are before him is Jonathan Taylor at 7.9.
Hmm.
You got Amon-Ra St. Brown going at 9. I'm
Oh,
taking
well,
St.
then
Brown.
there
uh,
is no doubt I'm picking Sun
Yeah,
God over Bowers.
I'm taking Sun God ahead of him every time.
Yeah,
Trey McBride is at 10.8.
that's
Then you,
another one
yep.
that, boy, I think he's the safer. I think he's safer, and Gronk picked that out. Safer floor.
Yes. Yeah. I think Trey McBride is the safer floor,
It
but
says target regression or injury. I don't think we can predict injury, but he did have injury last year, right? So
uh,
that's where the
well,
injury
he missed,
concept is coming in.
I don't think he missed more than one game last year. So I'm not sure where they're getting the injury from, other than injury is baked into any player's profile. But are they doing it because he's a year older?
Mhm.
I don't know if we've seen that reaction at tight end. Now, what I will say is target regression is very, very possible, because in addition to, of course, healthy wide receivers, if Michael Wilson, is back, of course, and he was really good down the stretch when Marvin Harrison Jr. was out, but you get a healthy Marvin Harrison Jr. back, and they added Kendrick Bourne. That doesn't sound like a lot, but they didn't have a third viable wide receiver last year.
Right.
So when Marvin Harrison Jr. went down, it was Trey McBride and Michael Wilson. That was it. You didn't have a third guy. And of course, remember what we lost at running back last year. We lost Connor, Benson, were gone. So
Yeah.
you had Bam McKnight as
Yeah.
the running back. So you had no running game. Now they got the rookie,
Yeah.
Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
He's going to be pretty good. So, and they're going to feed him. But they also have Trey Benson, Tyler Algier, and James Conner. So
Yeah.
even if the rookie isn't good, they've got depth at running back. They're going to be a running team. And if you look at the DNA of the new coach coming in from Green Bay, there. I'm sorry,
Notice it
having
said
the link
QB
to,
OC
yeah, the
improvement.
having, and again, not coming in from Green Bay, but having his coach, his brother is the coach of Green Bay,
Right.
and they share a very similar philosophy, and that is, we want to run the ball if we can run the ball. So I think there is a possibility that McBride could lose some of those targets. Now, McBride last year was a 129 in MVP. And that was after a 113 the year before and a 92 the year before that. So he's got 3 years over 90, which is insane. 2 years over 110, which is elite wide receiver level,
But at
folks.
10th, I mean, you could still have Sun God there.
Could have still have the Sun God. You could have one of my favorite guys, James Cook.
Are we going, Dennis? Are you in your draft so far? Have you picked up any of those two guys yet?
No, I've not. I'm
Yeah.
2 for 2 and not getting the elite tight end
I just don't know
because
if I'm not going into streaming situation.
no, my first draft, okay. My first draft, I was going number 3 pick, got Jason Smith-Njigba.
Yeah.
Automatic pick for me.
Yeah.
By the time my second round came
Yeah,
around,
these guys are gone.
they were gone.
Yeah.
So I grabbed Olave. I was
Yeah,
happy with
great.
that. So, and then I was able to get Kelsey in the 10th round.
See,
in
you're
that
going
draft.
into pair Kelsey up with like Juwan Johnson or somebody. I think you got a 1-2 punch
Yeah, and
for
what I did with
streaming.
what I did with Kelsey is I looked at it and I said, you know what? At every point in the draft, like Juwan Johnson went a couple of shots before me, then Hunter Henry went, everybody that I had targeted to match up with him was gone.
Yeah.
So my attitude became, I'm just going to stream one when I need one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about it. The guys that are still available on the in the draft, guys like Colby Parkinson, I'll be okay with that. A couple of the rookies, Jolie with Denver, who I think could make Ingram releasable. You got Delp with New Orleans. If anything happens to Juwan Johnson, I don't need a tight end before week 5. That's when Kelsey's on bye. So I was like, I'm fine. I'm rolling the dice. I got Gesicki out there. I got Arroyo out there. I got guys that I can pick. There will be a tight end that emerges. There's Colby Parkinson. There's guys that I can plug and play for 1 week. I'm not worrying about it because there will be a tight end that emerges that we don't think of right now.
Right.
So that's the way I went. The second draft that I was in, I was picking number 8. And I was like, ooh, okay.
You could get one of those two.
Picking number 8. I'm sorry, I was picking 7. I was picking 7.
You still could have got one of those two.
So yes. So I was in that point where I had them available. But I also had Jackson Smith-Njigba available.
Oh no.
Yeah. So he fell late and I grabbed him. So the idea being, if I can get him, great. But am I going to overpay? If I'm overpaying, there's an issue there if I'm overpaying. But if I could get Jackson Smith-Njigba at 7, I'm taking that every single time. I was
Dennis,
in shock.
If I'm overpaying, I better be damn sure I'm getting an elite guy in the second round that I think is better than people think. My confidence on an Olave or whatever else could be there better be sky high to make it worth my time to get those two guys at their price.
Yeah. If Jackson Smith-Njigba, the Sun God, Nakua, Chase are gone at wide receiver, if Bijan, Jamar Gibbs, CMC, and Cook are all gone at running back.
Yeah.
So that's 8 players.
Yeah.
They're all gone. When it's my time to pick.
Yeah.
And either of those guys are available.
Yeah.
Then I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I also like to maybe move up Cook, move up Olave, or move up CeeDee Lamb into that spot. But here's the thing. I have 3 players that I just mentioned.
Right.
And I could throw in a 4th with Justin Jefferson, which I'll bet on. Like Justin Jefferson's a top 3 wide receiver if he has even a competent quarterback.
Yeah.
And with an incompetent quarterback, he's still and stays healthy. He's probably still 10th to 12th best player to take off the board. So if he's there, I've got to think about that pick as well.
Yeah.
Not a guy that I really am eager to get. I'd rather have the Sun God or JSN well ahead of Justin Jefferson, but I'm not betting on 2 bad years in a row from Jefferson. So if I'm passing on Bowers and McBride, it's for a good reason. It's because there's an elite running back or wide receiver that's available. Those elite guys matter. Now, let's say Trey McBride had an established, let's say out of all craziness, we had a healthy Patrick Mahomes playing quarterback with McBride as his tight end. Then I'm more likely to take a tight end at either 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. I still would have a hard time at 8. Even Kelsey in his prime, I might not take at 8 ahead of guys who are, I consider, elite running backs or wide receivers.
Right.
Because you're giving up more than you might be getting back. But you know, with a tight end that's got reasons to have a decline in stats, that's concern. So number 3 on the list is going pretty early too. Like this is a year where the tight ends could be flying off the board very early in FFPC, where it is tight end premium. But right now, as we're looking ahead to the draft, Colston Loveland's going pick 23.
That's pretty aggressive too.
That's end of the second round. Now, if I will say this, if Bowers or McBride last into the early to mid portions of the second round, if either one of those by some weirdness would drop to pick 14, and that's where I'm picking, I'll make that pick so fast you won't even realize it's a 6-hour clock because I'll take exactly 3 seconds to make that pick.
Yeah.
Colston Loveland at 23 is interesting. I expect Colston Loveland to have a nice season. Like I think that, you know, my forecast on him for MVP is 75. That's typically above tight end 3. So that's elite. 75 is like having a 120 at tight end because it drops off so fast. Last year he was a 50. So we got a guy by the name of Luther Burden that's going into his second year after a 71 last year as a rookie. We got a Dunze who had a 50 last year in an injury-plagued season, which was a big jump up from 6. He could be an 80. I got both Burden and a Dunze forecast for 85 on my MVP index. I got Loveland at a 75. Obviously, I love Caleb Williams this year in fantasy football and real football. But here's the problem. That's a crowded room.
Yeah, that's what receivers. One of the pre-mortems, Dennis. I'm not buying the sophomore adjustment, but the crowded room worries me. So I guess I would rate that at a 50-50 shot for a reason. I would zero out the sophomore adjustment, but the crowded room is an issue. With the other 2 guys, I'm really feeling like it's about a 20-30% chance. So I'm not really buying what the AI is laying down. But Loveland, I'm thinking a 50% issue here. And I worry about Tyler Warren, the quarterback issue as well. So I'm feeling like the level of issue, we had 1, 2, and now we got 3, 4, and I think Fannin could be in there 5. Those next 3, I worry about the quarterback, the inconsistencies, the crowded room concepts. I'm giving that a lot more uh, concern than I have on the top 2.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you that here's the unreal situation here.
Mhm.
Number 1 and 2 have quarterback issues.
Yes.
Either a rookie who's inconsistent. In the case of Arizona, we don't know if Brissett's going to be back. Could be Minshew. Could
Oh,
be
I
a
hope
rookie there.
Brissett's back because
If
our
Yeah,
numbers really like him.
our numbers love Brissett, but again, this is a different Arizona team than last year. So
Yes.
even if Brissett does come out of his insane idea that he wants 2 years of starter money and signs and comes back to play, that's a completely shuffled deck with Arizona. So I think the offense looks a lot different. Then number 3, you got a crowd of 2 really good wide receivers. What we know from the past, elite tight ends can only tolerate 1 elite wide receiver typically. Colston Loveland could change all that. We could have a good touchdown share for Loveland, which is why I forecast him for 75 MVP, even though I've got 2 really good wide receivers above 80, above 80 in MVP. That's 2 very good wide receivers. So he could break that trend, but end of second round with that uncertainty. Ugh. Then Tyler Warren, good player, bad situation. The only good thing with Tyler Warren, they got rid of some wide receiver talent. So the only guys he's competing against are Josh Downs and Alec Pierce. But they've got a guy by the name of Jonathan Taylor who's probably going to get the ball a few times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they might be run heavy. They got a quarterback that may not be ready week 1 to maybe week 3. He's back in Daniel Jones. Other than that, you're talking a quarterback that Tyler Warren did nothing with last year. And for the full season, which included having Daniel Jones playing his best football, we've seen that once before, haven't we? And what happened the next year with Daniel Jones? He dropped way off. So I'm looking at a situation where Daniel Jones could be worse or could not be starting, and you get Riley Leonard in instead of him. Tyler Warren for his whole season last year, a 35 for an MVP index. That's like tight end 13. Why would I want him at tight end 4 this year? Doesn't make any sense to me. He did have spurts the first 6 weeks of the season with Daniel Jones. He was closer to a 70-ish in his MVP. So there is a reason he's being drafted for, but again, way early as far as the big picture of things. You're talking a guy who is going, pick 37. And we're talking guys that are around him in MVP right now. We're talking Devonta Smith, Tatorio McMillan, Egbuka, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Cam Scatterbo, Quinton Johnson, or Judkins, Bucky Irving. I mean, that's like a who's who of top 10-ish guys with their upside.
Right.
You're betting on Warren being a hell of a lot better this year. Then you get to Fannin and you got Deshaun Watson that, coming back after not playing. Like he hasn't played good until for like 6
Speaking
years.
of uncertainty, there you go.
Yeah. And you've got wide receivers, 2 rookie wide receivers added, plus Jerry Jeudy, who's not dead yet, plus a great running game with a coach and offensive coordinator who are going to want to run first. So that gets you down to 5. 6 gets you to Tucker Kraft, love Tucker Kraft. He had a MVP index of 100, but he also had a very serious injury last year.
Yeah.
Does he come back? Is he the same player? You get into round 6, so I think the injury is priced in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get to 7 and 8, Laporta and Kelsey. Love Kelsey in this situation. His final year, coming back
Is
for
he
a
going to
victory
get
lap.
a role reduction though? That's what is the issue with those two guys.
So you got Rashee Rice, who's currently in jail as we speak, and has a knee injury as well. You got Xavier Worthy, who's coming off an injury, and you got Tyquan Thornton, who's a good long route guy, but
So you're
not
not
an over the middle
you're
guy.
not weighing that as an issue.
No, I think Travis Kelsey's still the second best second best target option behind Rashee Rice, who's currently in jail. Then you get to Laporta, and there is a crowd. Gibbs is a good pass catcher out of the backfield.
Yep. Sun God, of course.
You got the Sun God, who's the target, king.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Jameson Williams, who's the long ball, deep threat.
He's streaky. He's like streaky. The Tyler Lockett streaky.
And you got that Tesla kid as a rookie last year who's a good red zone threat.
Second year guy. Man, they could really have that could put Laporta way out as fourth target.
It's very possible.
So I believe the role reduction applies to Laporta more than Kelsey.
And without the role reduction, he went from a 65 as a rookie to 31 as a second year player to a 67.
So back up.
That's without adding guys to the mix. And Tesla in his second year
is going to demand some target. Yeah,
made some spectacular
catches.
Yes, he did. And Gibbs
Flashed.
is going to get fed out of the backfield. So again, when we're saying all this, I just drafted Sam Laporta as my tight end in a brand new dynasty league because he fell far enough that he was a good choice. Yeah. But when we're looking at guys at the tight end position and you're overspending, you're having to spend a 6th round or earlier pick, you're still able to get starting running backs and wide receivers at that point for your fantasy team. You are passing up a guy to take one of these tight ends. That tight end better hit. And here's the great thing now is I can get Kelsey as late as the 10th round.
That's nice.
I'll take that. You can get Laporta as late as the 8th or 9th round. I'll take that. Then you get to Kyle Pitts, Ferguson, Kittle, Andrews. The only
injury
one that is
and age is what they're worried about.
Kittle, it's only injury, but they also added Mike Evans.
Yeah.
So better competition for targets for the type of work that Kittle does. So what we're saying here and what we're showing here is that there are red flag warnings on each and every tight end in the draft. That doesn't mean I won't select one early, but when I'm selecting one, all the running backs and wide receivers that I find in that tier as equal to them better be gone. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to take too late and take a chance. And I'll show you some guys I love. How about Pat Freiermuth with a coach that really knows how to use a tight end? McCarthy made his tight ends really good in the past when he was with Green Bay. And Ferguson a couple years ago with McCarthy running the show. How did that work out?
Pretty good.
He was pretty darn good. So you've got a guy who knows how to use a tight end like Freiermuth, and you're getting him cheap. Cade Otton, Evans is gone from Tampa. Now they've got a lot of good wide receivers because you got Ibuka, You've got you got Godwin back. You got McMillan. They just added a guy by the name of Ted Hurst as a rookie. A lot of competition for targets, but it's 14th round, man. I am throwing darts anyway. Hawkinson is an intriguing dude because the last time we saw Kyler Murray healthy,
Yeah.
he fed his tight end.
Yes, he did.
McBride looked like a world beater his second year with Kyler Murray feeding him. So Hawkinson, you're betting on him being healthy. That second year back from an injury, sometimes pretty darn good. And you're getting him in the 15th. Anybody I'm taking this late, I'm taking a second one, probably pretty close to him. Love Juwan Johnson. He's going real late, and he's an opportunity.
They got Carr.
Yeah.
See, just be aware. That's interesting. Tyler Shuck looked pretty good.
Oh, he looked really good. He looked really good as a rookie. And what have we known about quarterbacks in year two?
I'm expecting an increase in goodness.
Yeah. So I love him in there. How about Isaiah Likely being reunited with his coach, who knows how to use a tight end, and now he doesn't have Mark Andrews to share the load with. Likely is an interesting player as well. So there are these guys that have their windows of opportunity to be really good draft picks. And there's a lot of them. So it's not that I think that any of these guys we're mentioning now will be better than Brock Bowers or McBride.
No.
But what we're hoping is to Frankenstein two of these guys together to get tight end 6 to 8.
I mean, if I picked Kelsey, then I'm shopping in this menu here. Sure am. Maybe even 3, Dennis, with a 20. So like an Otten and then a Johnson, or a Johnson and then maybe a Ferguson or Henry, or even a Jonnu Smith sure flashed in Miami.
And we don't even know where he's going to be yet.
We don't know.
I think he'll be somewhere. He's just not been drafted yet. So my first draft this year, I got Kelsey. Okay, that was an easy pick. I did not draft anybody else.
Wow.
I will grab somebody
you're just
off.
like, I'll pick somebody off the waiver wire.
Rolling the dice on that one, because there wasn't anything that I really liked there.
Right.
At the second go round, at tight end, I took a flyer on a guy that I'm really high on, and I'm higher than consensus on this guy. Yeah. Dalton Kincaid with Buffalo.
Yeah.
You got an injury concern, but he had a 100 in full games played last year.
That's pretty good.
And his offensive coordinator that had some success with him when he was healthy is now the head coach. I grabbed Freiermuth as my backup.
Yeah.
I got Kincaid in the 10th round. I got Freiermuth in the 16th. I feel good about those picks because I didn't have to spend up for a tight end, but I might have Tyler Warren production with the best of those guys each week. Because I'm not sold that Tyler Warren is in a situation where he can shine. So on that team, my wide receivers, JSN, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams. Those were my starters. My speculative picks, all coming really late. I grabbed Matthew Golden in the 11th round. I grabbed Brandon Ayuk in the 14th. And I got Stribling from San Francisco in the 17th, the rookie. That's to go with my running backs on that team: Derrick Henry, Bucky Irving, Ramondre Stevenson, J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Brooks, Katron Allen, Mon Claiborne for Minnesota, and Malik Davis was my 18th round dart throw for Dallas if anything happens to Javonte Williams. I got Caleb Williams and Jared Goff as my quarterbacks in the 7th and 12th rounds. I like the way that team is shaping up. I think I've got no big weaknesses. If Dalton Kincaid stays healthy and performs at a tight end 6 level, I'm fine. If I have to paste together the best of Kincaid and Freiermuth, and Kincaid is kind of not quite there or injured, then I'm looking at pasting together tight end 8 production out of those two guys. And I got them late. I've got a lot of depth at running back. I've got a duo at quarterback that I can play matchups with, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. So Kelsey in the first draft, Kincaid and Freiermuth in the second. It doesn't mean I won't pick an elite tight end, but so far the draft just hasn't fallen that way. And as we explained, it's because there are reasons. There's more than one reason. There's more than just injury on why those guys could fail. And when I say fail, I don't mean being a complete bust. I mean not having a big enough gap between tight end 1 or tight end 2 and tight end 6 to pay off. That's the failure that you're looking at. If I grab a tight end in the first round in fantasy football, here we're talking Bowers and McBride only, obviously. If I grab one in the first round, I need them to produce WR1 numbers to justify that selection. We're talking an MVP of 100. That's elite. If I fail, if they come in at 80 or 70, that's still a pretty good performance by tight end purposes, but it's not elite enough to make up for the wide receiver or the running back that I passed on. Our goal is to win the matchup every week, not to get a gold star for having the top performer. Like, it's possible that I could have the QB1, the RB1, the WR1, and the tight end 1 and still lose because my RB2, my WR2 sucked. So the idea is to get that whole team over the finish line. And if you take a tight end, you're limiting your upside to having that number 1 performer at running back or wide receiver. You're decreasing your chances immeasurably. Right now, I'd only put, like, living up to ADP value for Bowers and McBride, I'd put that at about a 60% likely. So yes, I think it's going to happen, but there's a 40% likelihood that they fail to live up to that number, because that is even factoring in that I think I'll be smart enough to still get a top 10 wide receiver or running back in the next round, and maybe even getting a top 10 running back or wide receiver in round 3. Gone are the years, Professor, that I think you can get an elite quarterback and an elite tight end. I'm not even sure this year that it's worth trying to make that grab, that double grab, because I think you'll hurt yourself too much at running back and wide receiver.
That's always a concern, isn't it? Well, that was a look at the scorecard decision hygiene concept. I have all that out at Science of Fantasy Football. If you want to look at these figures, you can. It's there. And again, right now, before June, these are devices to inspire thinking, think about the patterns, the value. This is not in blood. This is just to inspire June and July research so that you're awake and making good decisions in August. That's it. Don't go bet the farm on $1,000 league using these data. You don't. No, 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 no.
Now, you have to be cautious in how you use even good data, but all you got to ask yourself before you're making, especially an elite tight end pick, how does this player fail?
Yeah.
Because if you can't answer that question for every single player in the draft, even when I'm picking JSN as my number one wide receiver, I know how he can fail. Sam Darnold returns to being the Sam Darnold that saw ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah. He ghosts out there.
Then all of a sudden, JSN, instead of being the number one wide receiver, is more like the number 8 wide receiver. And that's not what I want with my first pick. Yeah. I want a top 3 finisher at running back or wide receiver, or I want a slam dunk tight end that performs at that same elite level of a running back and a wide receiver. Guess what, folks? Even the top tight end has only a 100 MVP score. Doesn't hit that magic 120 mark. In fact, over the last 6 years, it's only been hit 4 out of 6 years. 2 years, they failed to have that 120. And it hasn't always been the guy who's going in the first round. Right. It's been 6th round guys like Kittle that got ignored that had that 120 score. So it's not always the top tight end taken. Elite tight ends need to be treated different than every other position. And if you cannot see, if there is no failure other than injury, if you have a hard time finding a reason not to like the player, that's the time to take him. Yeah. But as we pointed out, in addition to injury, we see 2 or more possible reasons for a decline for each of those first round tight ends, and even for that 3rd round guy. Yes. And that's still or a 2nd round guy, I should say, right, in Colston Loveland going into the 2nd round. If Colston Loveland was going in the 4th round, I'd have a lot of shares this year because I'm willing to take a chance on him at that point.
That means you got an elite wide receiver, an elite running back, and maybe a 2 RB or WR. That means you got some depth that you could then, roll the dice with Loveland.
Especially because I think, again, this year, there are some wide receivers and running backs that you'll get outside of the top 4 rounds that will be top 15 guys at the end of the year in weekly upside consistency. But those guys also have a flaw because they're going that late in the draft for a reason. Yeah. When you're spending elite capital on a tight end, they not only have to finish top 2, they have to finish top 2 by a wide margin because you will lose points at running back and wide receiver. Very interesting way to look at fantasy football from this deeper hygiene scoreboard concept. Yep. Professor, another brilliant idea that you have come up with, and next week we'll be looking at the quarterback position.
Sounds great. I'm ready.
So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. Check out all the articles on AI. Check out everything that we got going on over there, including our sister podcast, The Science of Fantasy Football. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page here at the Sports Affiliation. A lot of great podcasts, Tuesdays and Thursdays. My Tuesday and Thursday evenings get very busy watching those 2 fantastic podcasts, and we'll have even more throughout the season. And come on back here next week for another edition of the Data Lab.
Get to work, folks.